this is where social media is going to run rampant. And I've already started to see, some crazy posts about stuff like this. Um, yes, it is certainly possible that we have two hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico next week. According to official records, and when that I say, as far as we know, what's been written down, what we've been able to observe through history, through time, as far as we know, there have never been two hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. I'll show you this coming up in a second. There's been a tropical storm and a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time, and there's been two tropical storms in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. And there's actually been, most recently in 2002, two tropical depressions in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. But there's never been two, as far as we know, according to recorded history, there has never been two hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. That's what the official forecast, like I said, for Monday morning has both of these, or Tuesday morning has both of these storms as hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. Is that 100% what is going to happen? No. There's still a ton of uncertainty with what is going to happen with these storms. Laura, Tropical Storm Laura, some of the forecast models kind of tear that thing apart and really don't have it into a strong system at all as it enters the Gulf of Mexico. So right there's some uncertainty that we don't exactly know what's going to happen with Laura. On the same end, Tropical Depression 14, that one looks like it might end up being the stronger of the two. Might. But once again, there's still some uncertainty there. If they start kind of coming close to each other, I've seen some of you asking about this. What would happen if they run into each other, or can they combine? Will they become a superstorm? I see Janet just asking that. Over in the Pacific Ocean, kind of as you head over toward Japan and the Western Pacific, that way, we have observed over there. They're called typhoons. We have observed storms. They start to kind of spin around each other, and usually what ends up happening is one kind of fizzles out and one becomes a little bit more dominant as they kind of spin around each other. And you're going to see that I know Facebook and Twitter and the national news networks and everybody else are going to pick up on this over the next few days. I'm already starting to see it float around some places. When they spin around each other like that, that is called the Fujiwara effect. It's an actual thing. It is pretty rare for storms to do that. And usually when they do that, they're out like in the middle of the ocean with just nothing surrounding them. They're just out in the middle of the Atlantic. They're out in the middle of the Pacific. As far as I know, we've never seen that happen in the Gulf of Mexico. Is it impossible? No, not at all. Of course, nothing's impossible. It's 2020 after all. But do I think there's a very, very low chance of that occurring? Yes. What do I think is kind of the most likely scenario here? I think that one of these storms will probably become more dominant than the other, and one will just fizzle out or just kind of not be very strong to begin with, and the other one will stay fairly strong. Or if they do kind of stay, decently, strong and they're close to each other, I think the interaction between the two will likely cause one to weaken versus the other. So I think there's a lot of scenarios. Of course, anything can happen. Like I mentioned, it's 2020. We'll see. But when you see people talking about that Fujiwara effect, that's when you get these storms that start to spin around each other, and then one kind of absorbs the other. Is usually what ends up happening. And it doesn't really become a superstorm. They just kind of, it's not like they'll come together and all of a sudden you have, the day after tomorrow happening. That really doesn't happen with situations like this. So that would be an extreme scenario, very, very likely to occur. I really don't see that happening. But you're going to hear a lot about that because it's a snappy, fun word to say. And I know what happens when these, it's like derecho, it's like polar vortex. What's some of the other ones? All these words that just, you hear them and see them everywhere, but rarely are they communicated properly, or rarely do they accurately explain what's happening. It's just, a lot of people pick up on these words and start, spouting them out without, really knowing meteorologically what they mean. So that's kind of the scenario here. But either way, if we do get, like I said, if we do get 2 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, if both of them just, can move into the Gulf of Mexico and can briefly become hurricanes, and they're in the Gulf at the same time, that has never happened before as far as we know. Like I said, recorded history that we have access to, that has never happened before. And as I mentioned, the official forecast has TD14, Tropical Depression 14, what will likely become Marco. That's this one here, making landfall somewhere in Texas as a tropical storm. And then this one potentially which is Laura right now, potentially making landfall as a Category 1 hurricane somewhere, between Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle. The thing I think I think these forecast tracks and I think these forecast intensities are very much going to change as we head through the next several days, and especially once these storms, enter the Gulf of Mexico. I know that's what the official forecast says right now, because we have to put out an official forecast. The National Hurricane Center has to put out a forecast. So they're going to put, kind of their best, what they think is the most likely scenario. But when both of these storms start moving forward, as they make forward progress, as we go through time, there will be a lot of changes that happen with the forecast, with intensity, and whatnot. So this is just, you got to keep paying attention. You got to keep staying tuned. Is it guaranteed that this line's pretty much going straight into Galveston here? Is it guaranteed that Galveston's going to be hit by a Category 3 hurricane? No, of course not. Is there a good chance that Galveston will see impacts from a tropical system? Absolutely. But it's way too early right now to know exactly what's going to happen. And all you can do is, if you're anywhere along the coast right now, is keep paying attention. It's August, it's hurricane season. It's just the time to be prepared anyway. So all you can do is just keep being prepared and paying attention to the forecast at this point.